All right. Hi.
Good
I'm so
morning.
excited to have you. This is going to be a great Coffee and Comes. We're thrilled to have. Now, we have had a couple conversations about your name, and I was originally saying Rosalind, and I got that wrong. And you very nicely told me you had a courageous conversation, and you said it's not Rosalind, it's Rosalind. So Rosalind Wiseman. It goes without saying how famous she is, but we'll talk about that. Today we're going to be talking about courageous communications when we really need to have those moments where we have to have that conversation that we may or may not want. Now, we say this is for women, but wouldn't you say, Rosalind, it's for men and women? This is not
Oh,
just
of course.
for
Absolutely.
yeah, this is
Absolutely.
not just for women. But these are the times when we're talking about how do you respond when you've made a mistake? How do you respond when you've told you've made a mistake? Or how do you address a big boo boo? Now, why are we doing this? And why are we so excited to have Rosalind here? Well, she is an expert in this topic. You probably know her from the book, which I don't have the copy of it right here in front of me
Oh,
because,
I do
oh,
actually.
yay!
I
Okay, you have
do.
both. Okay.
Wait, I do actually. This
You've
is
got
the
that
book.
one? Oh, good. Okay. I have it on my Kindle. Queen
Yeah.
Bees and Wannabes, which was later turned into the movie Mean Girls, which was later turned into the musical Mean Girls, which is now coming out to the musical performance on film. Anyway, we know where this is going. And she has another book out, which I do have this one, not on Kindle, Courageous Discomfort, which we'll talk about today. But the first book turned into this blockbuster. And when we talk about these three topics, how do we talk about our mistakes? How do we respond when we've been told we made a mistake? Or how do we address a big boo boo? You kind of stepped into a courageous, maybe discomfort, uncomfortable moment with the big boo boos that we see that people need to talk about. And they're scary and they're high stakes and they don't always lend themselves to us showing up as the best version of ourselves, which is everything we do at Lang International. For those of you who don't know us, we are experts in high stakes communication. We coach, consult on that topic. And these are some of the high stakes moments that people find themselves in. We've got Taylor Swift, we've got Elon Musk, we've got CK Lewis addressing big boo boos. And then there you are.
That
And
is
it's not a boo boo, but it was really about you stepping
oh, it's
into,
scary.
yeah, high stakes and scary. So you decided to address this. You decided to call out a situation that you felt was unfair. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, I can say a little bit about it. I mean, I have my entire work has been about supporting women and giving people a voice and speaking out when things are hard. And for a long time, I've been in a situation where it's been hard for me, and I feel strongly about being self-reflective and walking the walk. And so my experience with Mean Girls was complicated and is complicated. And I really got to a point where I felt like I had to speak out about my experience, and that it was not as women supporting as I would have liked it to have been. And it was really scary. I mean, it's uncomfortable. It is to this day. It is me saying it right now.
Yeah.
But I also feel like it's really important to do. And the interesting thing about it is that because I work so much with young people, that the response from young people has not been about, which is so, it's not been about canceling or anything like that, which I do not like cancel culture at all. And I think people think that young people are like super into it as well. But the young people that I work with have been so supportive about me coming forward and saying, my experience with Mean Girls is messy. It's really messy. And it's
Right.
not been as the way that I would have liked it to be. And so that really has been, it's been, it's hard. And it also feels very grounding to do, to speak from your truth and to say and have the uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah, and when it's really scary because there's you and then there's this big organization. I mean, it's a little David and Goliath. It's a
Yeah.
little scary.
I'm
Yeah,
very
yeah,
much the David. I am very much the David in this
right.
situation. And all of the iterations of this situation, I am very much the David.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of us are in that situation, whether or not we're a teenage girl confronting the popular girl, or whether or not we are, right? Or whether or not we're stepping into a conversation with our boss, or we're talking to somebody who we view as an authority figure. and we have to have this tough conversation. There are strategies, there are things we can think about. And we're going to be talking about 3 from Courageous Discomfort from the book that I found to be really, really important for these high stakes moments that we need to have the conversation that we're afraid to have. So, we're going to be talking about courage. What is it? And the really important word here is fear. That it is going to be scary, it is going to be messy. And one of the things that we often do is we avoid it. We tell ourselves a story, and maybe you did this for years and years.
Oh.
Yeah, of I am not going to do this. It's not my place. I mean, how many times have we said that? How many times have we walked away and said, I wish I would have? And had the perfect statement or the perfect question after the moment, because it's difficult to step in it. You have to practice, you have to have tools, you have to rehearse, and you have to get ready. So, 3 very critical steps, and then we're going to get into some of your best practices. One, I talk about this a lot, but breathe. And as silly as it is, be intentional about how you breathe. So we talk a lot about this concept of lift, lighten, and settle. Lift is the inhale, lighten is to think about something or someone that brings you joy, and then to exhale. Now, that inhale and the lightning piece is so important because the talk track running through our head is usually pretty negative, especially coming into these moments where we're telling ourselves a story of failure rather than of success. And that can influence everything, your body and the how you show up and then what you say. So, inhale, think of, wow, this is going to be great. This is going to be a good moment. I'm going to get this off my chest. Then you prepare. You lay out what you're going to say, you use your phone, you rehearse it, you watch yourself, because your body is going to say a lot about how difficult this moment is, and it's going to influence the outcome. Then the third thing is don't back down. You're going to want to back down. Oh, I don't need to do this. I don't need to do it right now. So step into it and have the conversation. And as you're having the conversation, there's some principles to think about. And I want to talk about the first of the 3 that you mentioned in your book. Tell us about this one.
Well, so Courageous Discomfort, that's the last book I published, and that came out in
I'm going to hold it
October.
up here so everyone can
Oh,
get it.
there you go. Right there it is. And it really is as a writer and as a person who has the opportunity to think a lot about how communication lands with people and how to do better in communication, I am constantly thinking about what are the ways in which people can specifically improve and feel better about themselves in these difficult situations that you're talking about, Jenna. And so for me, there's this concept of principles guiding our thoughts and our actions, because there's a million different iterations of weird, crazy things that can happen to you that can be difficult or anxiety producing or create conflict and really unsettling feelings. And so one of the principles I have that's the most important is listening is being prepared to be changed by what we hear. And it does not mean you have to agree. It means that you walk into a situation just remembering that, so that your body and your mind, your whole being walks into a situation with that as a way of an approach to the other person and also to yourself, because it's so much easier to be able to listen, to actually listen, which I just want to make a slight variation of, sometimes we say listen for understanding.
Yeah.
And I think, and I absolutely think that that's wonderful. I think being prepared to be changed by what we hear is more action oriented towards us. It's a challenge in a way to us of, this is what you have to do to be able to be listening for understanding. You have to be ready to be changed by what you hear.
That is such an important reframe, because I talk a lot about listening to understand, which makes it all about the other person. Right? And not helping us stay in true curiosity and this openness to shifting our perspective.
Yeah.
And that's hard, because we come in with a bias. We're already nervous and uncomfortable. We're already like in our own heads about this. And then to say, oh, wait, I'm going to be changed by what I'm about to hear. It's almost like having a childlike mindset as you come into every conversation, to just be really, I don't have any bias. I don't have anything going on as a second talk track in my head.
Yeah. Hard, very hard. And so
Very difficult.
it's so hard, so hard.
Yeah. Well, then there's the second one that we talked about that I thought was really, really interesting and really hard. I mean, this one is the one that I thought, okay, I don't know how to do this because we run into values gaps. We talk a lot about this
Mm,
at Lang International all the time, that when you're having a conversation with someone, when you want something and their value system is different from yours, how do you have that conversation? How do you stay engaged when you're like, listen, okay, we do not agree. Let's agree to not agree. How many of us have said that? Let's agree to not agree. Or can we table that? Or this is my favorite one in corporate America is let's take that offline. How many of us have had that? Oh gosh, they got, and then everyone else in the room just starts freaking out because they're like, oh, they got the offline. And they're like, really? What's going to happen next? So
yeah, that's
this
scary.
one is tough. How do
Yeah.
we manage through this?
So this is really tough, and it's really tough, especially when you're talking about value gaps, because we get to this place of, I can't talk to you because fundamentally you disagree with my values, or I disagree with your values. And we live in a culture that is the opposite of this, which is we're really hard on people. And because we're so hard on people, then we don't have the bandwidth or the focus, attention, the intellectual rigor to be able to be hard on ideas the way we need to be. I mean, I really think this is an important thing, that when we are hard on people, we really get easy on ideas. We don't
Hmm,
have the focus we need to actually focus on the problem. And so, and I mentioned cancel culture a few minutes ago, and I think this is actually one of the most difficult, one of the worst consequences of cancel culture, is that it's like it collectively contributes to our, I mean, frankly, to our stupidity in some ways, and our inability to actually have conversations with each other. We get dumber when we are hard on people and easy on ideas. So this is culture. So what I'm doing is doing a reframe, that we want to be easy on people, which does not mean do not hold them accountable. That's
right.
actually a really, because understandably people can say, and I really, really understand this, of you're going to be easy on this person means you're not going to hold them accountable. Well, in education, we make a very clear distinction between discipline and punishment. Discipline
Hmm,
means to teach in Latin, and punishment comes from the root word of pain. Pain does not actually ever teach anybody anything except to either hide what they're doing or to resent you and come back at you later.
hmm,
Discipline actually teaches you internalize whatever it is that you're supposed to learn. So when we are easy on people, we can actually get them to a place, and we can think about it in a way, or we can hold them accountable in a way where they can actually learn,
yeah.
instead of just shaming them, isolating them, making them feel that they don't count, or just making them feel pain. And nobody learns in that situation.
Mhm,
So this principle is really about actually stopping this immediate need to make ourselves feel better from a place of ego, or a place of self-righteousness, a place of wanting to feel like in the moment that you have done something righteous,
hmm,
but really what is going to be a solution that has a better chance, or the best chance of working. And
hmm.
that way is by having a principle of being easy on people and hard on ideas.
This requires a lot of breathing, huh?
It does, especially, I mean, look, especially on issues of when you're talking to somebody who, for example, is taking the dignity away from somebody else by saying something discriminatory, degrading, who humiliates another person. Like when we really get to that place, I mean, if we really want to, like, that's where we get to, where this gets really hard.
Yeah,
Then like, I mean, there's another thing, I think we'll talk about it in a minute, but like, how do we get to that place? Because we get so angry, and we have an understandable reason for being angry.
yeah. We are gonna go there next, and that reminds me of a story. One of my clients, a female, was working with a group of 3 to 4 individuals on a very large sales deal, and the gentleman she had to sell to told her that he did not want a woman in the room while he made the decision.
Yeah, that would be hard. That would be a good example.
Right? And this is and how do you move through that? I mean, how do you when it's not only against your values, it's against your organization's values,
Or
and you
stated
feel
values, right? I
right, and
mean,
then you find yourself
right.
in a situation, and that brings me to this dignity is not negotiable. So tell us about this principle.
So we don't use dignity a lot in our language,
Yeah.
and I'd like us to use it more. Dignity from Latin means that you recognize someone's essential worth. It's given, cannot be taken away. And although people will try, that dignity, meaning dignitas, is just to be worthy. You're just worthy. You just have that as a given, as a person, as an entity. I'd like to think of it actually that the earth has dignity, and so we don't use that very often. And the reason we don't use it very often is because in hierarchies, dignity actually levels the playing field.
Mm-hmm.
And we are very focused in a lot of different ways in our educational institutions, in our business, in our financial institutions, our business orientations on hierarchy. And I
Mm-hmm.
believe in hierarchy on merit, absolutely.
Yeah.
But oftentimes that's actually not what hierarchy is based on. It is based on power.
Yes.
And so dignity, when we focus on that, gets us to a whole different place of, for that woman that you just described
Yeah.
in the meeting, it's being able to say to this person, or for her to say to herself, I'm not being superficial. I'm not being, this is not a silly thing that's happening that I'm being ousted out of. My dignity someone's trying to take away my dignity, my essential worth, and that is not okay. And so
Right.
being able to remind yourself that dignity is not negotiable, your dignity is not negotiable, the other person's dignity is not negotiable, is incredibly empowering.
Right. And then you think about respect is earned, especially when you're in a position of authority. I'm really putting you on the spot right now, and I
Sure.
apologize, Rosalind, for doing this, but what would you have done if you were this woman?
Oh, what would I have done if I'd been this woman? Oh my gosh. Okay, well, I mean, there's a couple things I would ask you, but that I will ask you. But the first thing that I would do is I would think my dignity is not negotiable. Second thing I would say is I don't have to respect my boss's actions for acting this way. I don't need to
Mhm.
do that, right? Like, so there's a really important trifecta between self-respect, showing respect, and having respect for someone. And we often are in situations in our lives where we have to show respect to somebody that we actually don't, because of the way that they treat other people, which is that they are
Mhm.
not treating other people with dignity. They're not recognizing the other person's dignity, or they're actively trying to take it away, like this man was doing in this situation. And one of the things that can happen that's really complicated is that when you have to show respect to somebody that you don't, oftentimes there's this thing that happens where we lose a sense of our own self-respect. Somehow we feel that we are complicit in this power dynamic, that we have contributed to taking away our own power, or we feel shamed that we haven't been able to speak out. And if we talk to other people, the other thing that can be really hard when we talk to other people for support is that, other people often feel that our situations, this is a natural human condition, that other people's situations are much easier than when we're
Yeah.
in it. So the other people can say, well, just do this. And by the way, and this is the case no matter what, when anybody says, just do
Yeah.
this, why don't you just, it's never that easy, right? I
Yeah.
actually think we should take out the why don't you just from our language entirely in our relationships with people,
So
because
true.
it
So
never
true.
works, right?
My
It
husband
always
would appreciate that. My husband would appreciate that.
children really appreciate that with their
Yeah, they
parents.
would appreciate that too.
So yeah, it's just of this, it's not helpful. It's
No,
never a helpful thing to say. And we wouldn't feel that way if we were in the other person's shoes. So
that's so true.
so I think that the framing, when you first just to when you get into these situations, is really important, because we can feel shame, we can feel belittled, and it gets us quiet. And so this dignity and respect dynamic, just to remember, that empowers us and grounds us. And just to say, respect in Latin means to admire someone's actions, and so that the position that you get is based on, this is the assumption, which so often frankly is not accurate in our real lives, but is that you have acted in ways that are admiring for other people, and therefore you get a position of respect because of it. That's not a guarantee in life. We
Oof.
often have
Okay.
people in positions of respect who use that position of
Yes.
respect and the authority they get because of the position to take away the power of other people.
Oh,
And so that's where the mess of it gets to. So
yeah.
we need a grounding of how we need to think of ourselves and how we need to think of the other people. And also to really acknowledge that it's frightening to confront somebody with more power. It is absolutely frightening. And I mean, I spoke about that when we first started, and it quiets you, and
Mhm.
it stops you from speaking out. Sometimes people in positions of power depend on that to get away with their behavior. So that's the grounding. Then
Right,
then I would turn it around, Jenna, to ask. I would ask a couple of questions to the person who's in this situation. So if you
right.
want me to ask you some questions, I can do that, or we can move on.
Yeah, yeah, no. I mean, I think that the key thing here is to recognize that you are worthy. Dignity is not negotiable from your principles, which is so important. And then coming back to these moments of stopping and saying, okay, I'm not going to leave because someone made me feel less powerful, less worthy, and that I don't feel like I have the tools to have the conversation. I'm going to stay in it. I'm going to step in it. You did it. You are a role model for somebody who is having the conversation that is scary and hard. We all need to breathe, prepare, and don't back down, because we want to make sure that no one takes our power away and that we can have these courageous conversations when we communicate, because that's going to advance all of us as a society, whether or not you're a woman, a man, wherever you are. It's really important. So I can't thank you enough for joining us. Really, I could spend an hour talking to you. I not only learned a lot about these principles from your book, but I learned Latin, which is great. I mean, it's always good to learn some Latin.
Always good to learn Latin.
And I hope you all found this helpful. Thank you so much. Come back for our next Coffee and Comms next month. Thank you so much.
Thanks.